and I've heard this from people that were sad to move back. I heard this from people that were happy to move back. I heard this from people that had no choice but to move back. But I think a lot of times people enjoy Japan, especially if they're foreigners. Well, obviously if they're foreigners, because I've always felt like we were at war, but now I know that.
Hey guys, what's up? What's up? What's up? So again, it's Ranzo, and we have an old guest from back in what 2019 was it?
Yeah, I think so.
2018, one of them.
2019,
2019,
one of those years.
yeah, 2019,
Yeah,
right?
it's been a
So
while.
Brenden, right?
Yes.
Right. So we're gonna get into an interview. We're actually in a place called Ariyoshi in Queens, New York, right?
sir.
So yeah, you came all the way from Connecticut, which
Yeah,
is like an hour plus drive.
Hour and 10.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, not too long, but
All right. Okay.
well worth it. Well worth it. In
Right.
good company.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Cool guy, really cool guy, right? So tell us, right? You left Japan what 2 years ago, was it, or 3 years?
3 years ago. At this point, 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I left in 2021, right after the Tokyo Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
I got a chance to volunteer there. Pretty dope experience. When the Paralympics got rolling, I packed it up and came back to the States.
So why did you decide like to move back to America from Japan?
There was a couple of reasons. The biggest was because my parents were relocating, and because they were, packing up. They've been in the same place for, longer than I've been alive.
From where? In relocating from one state to another state, or
So yeah, they were relocating from CT, and they wanted to go down to the south.
okay.
And that reason was more than enough to come home. But kind of other reasons and deeper reasons, a lot of things that were taking place during that time after, the virus and, the political atmosphere of America, I felt like there was so much that I needed to be doing. And I was overseas, giving all my energy, my time and attention to other issues and other problems where myself, I know that I have a lot to offer. So I felt really needed. And there were people back home saying like, yo, we need you back. Like,
wow.
we got work to do, so that's one of the reasons why it was like a huge call. And my parents needed help, obviously, relocating, but at the end of the day, you can hire people to move your stuff. But the biggest reason was because I felt like there was a lot of work that needs to be done, and I just felt that desire to give back to my community and that desire to kind of come back home and make a difference.
Did you feel like there was a tug in your heart?
Absolutely.
Right.
Especially when I see people where I'm from, in my community, in my home, going through certain things. And not to say that I'm a superhero and I can protect them all the time, but more so like there are things that you can do to make a difference. There's people that you can talk to, there's systems that you can create, there's programs that you can run to either keep people away from certain areas or just to give them direction so they feel like they have purpose and they feel like they have, something to live for and something to kind of fight for.
Was it like a bittersweet experience, or like, for instance, like you're in Japan, were you enjoying your time, but you had to leave? So I'm wondering if like if your heart was divided, like you wanted to stay,
bit.
but you wanted to leave at the same time. Was it something like that, or?
Yes. Yeah, it was because to be honest, by the third year, I finally was getting my groove, really kind of learning the language, and the world was opening up more. And feeling that responsibility was like, oh, but you got to take care of yourself at the end of the day. You can't, you got to pour into yourself, and you got to be able to kind of do your own thing. And because I had grown my tongue, in Japanese, and because I have grown my network, it was like, but I'm finally catching my stride. I'm finally, feeling the flow of things, of this lifestyle. I could finally see myself kind of living in Japan for the long haul because I had finally learned the ways in which to walk my group of friends. I had a great group of friends. I feel like I created family out in Japan. And even the community that you provided, when we were meeting up in Tokyo, having those dinners really kind of with the people of from
Family.
our diaspora, I was like, this is something that I could get used to. It was at times certain amounts of solitude that kind of felt like, this is rough to get through. But those rough patches were met with, again, that community that I found out there, not only just from people from our diaspora, but just people that from all over the world. It's like, these are my friends, these are my family. Catching that stride was hard to make that decision, like, all right, I'm just gonna give it all away because I need to go and answer this other calling and this other responsibility that I have. But at the end of the day, it was well worth it.
So how long were you in Japan, and what were you doing while there?
I was there for 3 years. I was teaching English, and I was also learning Japanese. And more so than anything, I think I was really trying to find more of myself. I think when you do get a chance to travel and you do get a chance to step outside of your own kind of surroundings, you get a chance to really focus on yourself, because now everybody else's problems and everybody else that was kind of leaning on you, that is not there anymore. And people are not calling you because, oh, I need a ride, or people are not calling because, oh, I need some advice. You kind of get a chance to really smell yourself and like, all right, these are the things I need to work on. These are the things I like. These are the things I don't like. And that opportunity for me to kind of grow more into myself was huge, like in just how I see the world now. So it was really important.
Okay, so what do you miss the most and what do you miss the least about life in Japan or living in Japan?
I think what I miss the most is my people. Like I really like, I had a Gigi-chan and a Baba-chan. That's like a grandma and a grandpa. I
In
had
Gunma.
in Gunma. You know, I had my friends that I really built some beautiful relationships out there. And even now, I don't keep in touch as much as I want to, but a lot of times it's because of the time difference. Not because I don't want to or I don't have the desire to. So I'm definitely going to, be honest with that and say that I miss my people the most. What I miss the least, I would say, is I guess some of the inflexibility. Sometimes, the culture in Japan is like, it got to be one way. It can't, if you want something on the menu, nah, it got to be like this. There's no kind of improvisation
Flexibility.
and no flexibility. Not all the time, but a majority of the time. And I think more so than anything, there's a culture of, there's a word in Japanese, I'm pretty sure you know it, but it's shoganai. And that culture of shoganai, it's like, at certain instances, it's there's nothing that can be done.
It's legitimate.
It's legitimate, but I feel like sometimes in Japan the culture of shogunai is too prevalent. Where it's like there actually is something that you can do if you sit, be still, listen to listen to what you really need to do, and get that, understand your higher calling. Nah, there's something you can do. You got to get to work. But that culture of shogunai is something like I don't think that's always true. There is something that you could be done. So I miss that the least. You know what I mean?
Is there one thing that you took from your time in Japan that you sort of like reinvested in your re-entry into America? Like one lesson you learned?
Absolutely. Humility. I think humility is one of the biggest pieces of culture that there's no missing it in Japan. I remember I was in the teacher's office in my school, and Kocho Sensei, like principal of the school, he was on the phone. Couldn't see the person, but even though he was on the phone, he was still like, hi, bowing, like, hi, like, yes, yeah, I got you, hi, hi. And just, even though he's on the phone, the person can't see him, he still had the courtesy to bow and like let them know, like, yes, I understand you, I'm listening. And that humility is not separate. It's ingrained in the culture, it's embedded, sometimes to the detriment. Like, he's like, okay, you being too humble. But I think that vision gave me the opportunity to see, or that culture gave me the opportunity to see, like, there's a way that you can operate where you're thinking about the collective versus the individualism. And that piece, when I came back home, I started to apply in everything. Like, yes, I do believe that you should take care of yourself, and yourself comes first. But at the end of the day, you are part of a collective. And when you grow to understand that and you move in that way and you operate with that mindset and that mentality and also keep it in your heart, it makes a world of difference, because now other people feel that resonating off of you. So the things that you do, the things that you say, when you think of we, you're saying we versus me. It's like people gravitate. And coming back home, feeling how people have gravitated towards me because of that, it just makes me feel like I need to double down on that. And that's one of the biggest things I feel like I've applied coming back home.
Wow. So just a segue, right? Since you're saying that, so what are you doing now in America? Tell us about it.
Oh man, I'm doing a lot. First and foremost, I'm taking my poetry career to the next level. So I am an international poet. I just competed to make a CT Slam team a couple of days ago.
Okay.
I fell short by a couple of points, but I wasn't upset at all, because every poet that made the team and that was in the final round, if people that are unfamiliar with slam poetry, you go through a couple of rounds and there's an elimination process. So I made it to the final round, and the poets that didn't make the team are really good friends of mine, all of them. And because I'm already on a slam team, so I competed in October a couple of months ago, and I made another slam team in a different state. So I was competing kind of to be on two poetry slam teams, and it's not that I'm trying to hog, I felt like it was their time, and I'm already on the team, so I need to focus on being on that team. But aside from taking my poetry career to the next level, I'm also taking my speaking career to the next level. So I spoke on my first college university a couple months ago as well.
Congrats.
And thank you, man. It was really big because it was my alma mater. It was the college that I graduated from, the university that I call home. and I've always been speaking at different high schools, and I got the chance to speak overseas at different places, even at a university in Tokyo. But it
Okay.
wasn't the same when I was at a university home, and like I didn't have to like water down the message or keep it super simple. I could kind of really go full fledged, have at it. It was a special moment. So those two things are some of my biggest priorities. But aside from that, I just got a promotion, and I started today. Today's my first day on contract
Okay, okay.
as the executive director of the Mosaic Coalition, which is a nonprofit here in Connecticut. And we're in 4 different cities in Connecticut. We're expanding next month to 2. We're moving kind of too fast, if you ask me, because when you expand to like a new city, there's a lot of work that comes with it. So it's like we're celebrating like, hey, congratulations, and I'm like, oh, more,
More work.
more work. But it is a blessing to be able to be in this position to give opportunities to other people operating with that mindset of thinking of us as a collective and how can we come together and help each other. So that's what the Mosaic Coalition is about. Us not only advocating for education in multiple ways and giving people the choice of their education here in Connecticut, but also doing different programs and activities that are kind of outside of the box. Yeah, we could come to the hood and do a bunch of basketball games, but are you doing chess tournaments? Are you doing literacy programs? Are you doing ESL classes for some of the people that don't know and don't have the access to learn English in other settings and other capacities? So all of those things I get to do. I get to teach kids how to swim. I'm doing swimming programs. I'm doing a sailing program. I don't even know how to sail, but you know what? I'm gonna learn with y'all, and I'm gonna stay a page ahead of y'all. So the next day y'all come in, y'all know how to sail. So some of those things that are really near and dear to my heart, I'm getting an opportunity as the executive director of this nonprofit. I'm getting a chance to kind of live my dreams and providing other people opportunity to do the same. So it's been a blessing, man, and those are some of the biggest things. I also started my own clothing brand. I kind of got it on, shameless plug right here. And my clothing brand is called United Fabric. Fabric is kind of spelled in a unique way. At a certain point, we were coming together like, how can we take the same energy that we're applying when we fellowship and we commune with each other, and how can we make money? So this was one of the ways we decided to dip our toes into not only just spending, not only being consumers, how can we be owners? Because that's another mindset, that group economics and that ownership that we want to apply, not only in the things that we talk about, but the ways that we walk, the ways that we carry ourselves, feeling not only, oh, like I can own an item from somebody else, but own something that I created and something that I put together. So that's what United Fabric is about, using a group economic mindset and a collective mindset to come together and like, I'm not going to rock no designer. This hat that I got on, my man's made this hat. And I'm looking at this like this is designer because he made it. He took the time to be creative and put together Quiet Count. It's something that he believes in. It's his brand. This is United Fabric. So United Fabric is taking the things that are for us, by us, on some, I don't know if you know, I'm familiar with FUBU. Yeah, for us, by us, and considering that to be the designer versus I'm gonna go buy some, I don't know, whatever the designer is, and go pay people a bunch of money who don't support our culture, who don't give back to us. So no, I'm not doing that. So that's what United Fabric is about. So pretty busy, as you can see, but some of these opportunities and these blessings, like it's not lost upon me that I'm in a unique position and I have a responsibility.
Do you miss Japan?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The safety,
Yeah.
the convenience, going to Konbini, getting some karaage or some, yakisoba, not from the Konbini, the yakisoba you get at the festivals, but, just the ability to kind of, I guess, walk with a sense of security. I do miss that a little bit. I do miss, a lot of the Japanese culture that I grew to love. So yeah,
Will you be back anytime soon?
oh yeah, I was supposed to go back last summer, but I was unable to, and I did a lot of traveling in 2023, and I had my sights going back to Japan in the summer, but I had to make a decision like, do I want to go here, do I want to go there, and the price tag for Japan versus where I went, it was a lot different. But this year I have huge plans to go back in 2024 this year. And I want to aim for the summer because I would like to go back for not just like a week or two. I would like to go back for like maybe a month or two and really carve out some time, maybe go back in July or August and really get an opportunity to spend time in Gunma in Tokyo, go to Kyoto, go see my peoples, maybe travel to a new place in Japan that I haven't been. But yeah, I will be back this year, and that's one of my biggest goals because I would also, and maybe you can help me out with this, I would also like to perform I performed a couple of times in Japan. I performed in Osaka, I performed in Tokyo, I performed in Guma. Being an international poet, one of my boys, Midnight, he put me on. He was like, "Yo, make sure you perform." So I did that, but I also got a chance to practice my speaking career. So when I do go back to Japan this year, I would like to focus on getting a couple of gigs to speak. And also speak at places where, yeah, I got to get my Japanese up. So, go there with a prepared speech and dive in and maybe do half of the speech in Japanese, half of the speech in English. So that's a huge goal of mine. So, if you know anybody that's looking for some speakers, we can set it up in the summertime, and really get busy.
Okay. So is there anything that you've learned being back in America?
In terms of, like,
Like,
in regards to
like
Japan or just in
no,
general?
just in general, like a reintroduction, right? Because I feel like when you live overseas,
Okay,
like your
yeah.
perspective changes, right? More colors
Absolutely.
added to your life. So when you come back, you're seeing America with new eyes,
Yeah.
right? So like, is there anything that you've learned since being back here?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I learned is that I've always felt like we were at war, but now I know that when I say the phrase and when we are at war, it's not just like with guns and bombs. When I came back because I felt like my time in Japan, I was in a lot of solitude, and this was a moment for me to really self-reflect and really kind of prepare myself to the next phase of my life. When I came back to America, I learned that we are truly at war, especially spiritually. And there's a lot of things, a lot of situations, a lot of entities that are constantly pumping out things that will affect you spiritually. And if you are not prepared, if you are not, like, I don't even want to say just prepared, but if you don't have no foundation and you don't believe, then you really out here susceptible to some very, very powerful forces that are beyond you, beyond your understanding, beyond your control, beyond your influence. And you have to learn how to equip yourself to, your spirit man needs to be fed. And it's cool to be bopping to some song all day long, but if you don't understand that that's having an effect on you spiritually, then you're gonna be susceptible to some things that really mess you up or get you off track, and you don't even realize why your life is headed in a certain direction, and it's spiritually, So I think we are at war. Of course, it's like, the guns and the bombs, maybe economic, all those things are pretty obvious. But I think the ones that is not so obvious that I really learned more about is that spiritual warfare that is not always talked about, is not always kind of illustrated to people. And yeah, that was
It's real.
It's super real. So that's, I think, the biggest thing. That was one of the things that I guess I gained more insight to, and it was a more colorful picture when I came back home.
For people in Japan, right? Because usually when they hear that someone is moving from Japan back to America, they're like, what are you doing? Like, are you crazy, right? Any, I guess, advice for them, right? Like, because I feel like they think it's the worst decision. Like,
Advice
usually
for who?
for the people who might want to move back, or they might be in a position where they need to move back.
To United States?
Yeah, or wherever in the world, right, from Japan, and they're like maybe a little bit scared, afraid, nervous, etc. Any advice from your perspective, because you lived in Japan and moved back, right? Anything
Yeah.
you can share to maybe like let them alleviate some of that stress?
I would say carve out a plan. Don't just come back, because a lot of times, and I've heard this from people that were sad to move back. I heard this from people that were happy to move back. I heard this from people that had no choice but to move back. There was kind of like sometimes a resentment. It's like, oh, I'm not gonna be special no more because when I'm in Japan, I'm super special. This is not me. Wherever I walk, I feel like I got it. I know what I'm doing. But there's some people that were scared to go back home. Not even just because they felt like they weren't gonna be special no more, but almost to the sense that Japan is almost like a false reality. And I'll put it like this, and I will try not to be too convoluted, but I think a lot of times people enjoy Japan, especially if they're foreigners. Well, obviously if they're foreigners, because it's super clean, it's super structured, it's super convenient, it's super, it's very unique, it's beautiful, there's a culture that's vibrant, but they don't have to abide by the rules of the culture. Japanese people have a certain custom, they walk in a certain way. They don't talk on the train station. I could be a foreigner. I could go into the train station and I could talk and I could be on the phone. And because I'm a foreigner, oh, well, it's okay. Daijoubu ne, right? It's okay. It's cool. So that freedom, you get all the benefits of being in Japan, but you don't have to be held to the same standard. You get kind of sucked in because oh, this is beautiful. I could do all of these different things, but you don't have to live and abide by the same rules that keep that culture in that way. So when you come back home, and you got to deal with other problems, you got to remember you're going back to a culture that you know well, but you think that it's all rainbows and candies and Skittles when it's not. You just weren't a part of that culture, and you didn't do the work that made it necessary for that culture to even exist and to live. You were just roaming freely. When you go back to your own country and you feel like, oh, but this is not like that, and you start complaining, it's like, well, you can do something about it. You can participate in that culture and do something about it, or you can complain about it. So I think going back, the biggest thing is to create a plan. So you understand that there is going to be a culture shock when you get back. You are going to need time to kind of process. You are going to need time to kind of reevaluate yourself, reevaluate how you see yourself within your own community, your own culture, your own society. And when you do have a plan and you know like it's easier to have direction. A lot of times people come back and then they want to go right back to Japan or wherever they lived because that culture shock is too strong and they got too used up to that freedom and those benefits without pouring into the culture. And I feel like that happens. So I would say create a plan, strengthen your sense of direction, which is, obviously a way to strengthen your sense of self. And, don't be afraid to, now that you did, in order for you to leave your nest and go to a different place, you had to take a leap of faith. Take another leap of faith. And don't be afraid to take those leap of faith because, that's how you will get to the next level. That's how you will kind of ascend and kind of step into a new version of yourself.
You know what? Just earlier you said that there was a calling, right, to come back. So I think also for the people who might be in Japan right now and they feel a calling, like a tug, like a reason to go
go back
back,
home?
right, but they're resisting that because they want to stay in their comfort zone. I think just like you did, if there's a calling there that's drawing you, they should answer it. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. And I think that if you are unable to answer that calling, then you are denying not only yourself, but you're denying the people that you would affect or denying the community that needs you, regardless of the fact if they are the ones calling. Because for myself, it was my community calling, like, yo, what's going on? But I think more so than anything, it's kind of like, I don't want to get all biblical on it, but like Jonah in the well. It's like,
100%.
it's like Jonah in the well. It's like, yo, if you could deny that calling all you want, but
The will is coming.
the well is coming, and that well,
That's a word.
the well is coming. And you feel me?
snap.
So for those people that I guess they do feel like they have a calling, and prayerfully, Japan ain't going nowhere, so you can always go back and you can set your life up to kind of revisit. But I think more so than anything, to the point that you just made, once you create that comfort zone, you need to figure out a way to break out of it. Because you get into the space that's after your comfort zone, which is like, the fear zone. And then after the fear zone, it's like, kind of like the growth zone. It's like, oh, shoot, I'm growing. And then after a while, that growth zone then becomes your comfort zone because you've gotten to a certain point where it's like, you know how to do that. You can do that now with your eyes closed. Those same things, those same, skills. It is time for you to kind of, again, like you mentioned, step outside your comfort zone and answer that calling because that is the only way that you're part of that community, you're part of that culture. How can it move forward without maybe one of its best assets, its best, and not to say that everyone needs to go back, because some people, like, they don't have that calling, and they're not called to do that. They can just exist or live or be in that other, that other place, regardless if it's Japan, whether you live somewhere else. But for those folks that are experiencing that tug, that pull, I would say answer that calling in your own time and figure out why that is happening. Figure out why you feel that way. And when you get to the why, that will give you that direction that, is truly pivotal.
And life is about purpose, right? Like life is that's the purpose of life is purpose, right? So life is about purpose. And what's the message that you carry, right? Because you're talking about speaking. So when you go to a place to speak, like what message do you carry?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Thank you for asking me that. The biggest message that I rock with is the 3 pillars that have put me in this position that I'm in. And those are teamwork, leadership, and service. I realized I've been on sports my whole life. So when I got to a position where I moved outside of my state, stepping outside my comfort zone, and I moved to a different state, I got a chance to finally be on a team that didn't involve sports. So in my mind, it's like, either basketball or football or soccer. I was a huge soccer player. I had to learn how to be on a team that didn't involve sports. It made me realize that there's so many pivotal teams that are, I guess, history makers that don't have nothing to do with sports. They're not dribbling the ball, they're not passing the ball back and forth, but they still were a team. And that teamwork, to me, I feel like is one of the big, quote I live by, teamwork make the dream work, right? Then leadership. One of the things I preach about or talk about is the importance of leadership and how everyone has a role to play when it comes to leadership. A lot of times people think of leader, oh, strong, maybe a man, maybe someone that's super, boisterous or vocal, but you could be a leader and you don't have to open your mouth at all. But there could be things, or your style of leadership, or the way that you carry yourself, or the way that you exude that confidence, that you can display that leadership and give that leadership style to other people to kind of recognize, just as important, just as pivotal for a team's success. It doesn't always have to be the loudmouth that's always at the front of the pack. It could be someone on the side analyzing, or data, or whatever the case is. As leadership is important. And then service. We are here to serve others. And the sooner that you get to that realization, the better off you'll be in your direction and in the distance that you cover. Regardless of how you slice it, dice it, we are here to serve somebody. Somebody right now is serving us food. We're going to go home and we're going to do work or do jobs that serve other people. So that's what it's about for me, service. So those 3 pillars are the biggest things. There are a couple of other things that, I throw in there and put in the mix, but those are the 3 pillars, and I kind of base a lot of the messages that I have off those.
So where can people find you online, right? If they want to get in touch with Brenden, where do they go? Like the clothing line, speaking, poetry, where can they find you?
So you can find myself on Instagram. My Instagram is Balance. That's at BALANC3. I'm not Hollywood, so I do follow back, unless you're like a robot or like some wild person talking about some wild stuff. But aside from that, the clothing brand, you can also find the clothing brand online, Instagram, or go to our website, which is United Fabric Clothing Brand, United Fabric Clothing LLC. You can tap in.
Instagram?
The Instagram is just United Fabric. It's spelled in this way. So FABREQ. Again, this is spelled in a unique way because each letter in fabric is first initial of one of my family members. Yeah, so it's like, I'm the B, my name Balance, Brenden. But aside from that, tap in with me. I am looking to really put other people in position. In 2023, one of the biggest things I brag about nowadays, I brag different now. I got the most people paid that I've ever gotten paid before. And it feels good to me because a lot of people, measure their success by the things that they accomplish. And I'm learning as a leader and the responsibility I have, the ways that I measure my success is how I put other people in position, or how I get other people paid, or how I give other people opportunities. That said, one of the biggest things I'm looking to do is continue to put other people on stages and perform and to share their poetry. I've been to so many different places where people are like, oh, I've been to a show, but I never wanted to share. I ain't gonna mention nobody that's next to me, but, I've been to a show, or I wanted to always share, but they kind of like, just need that extra push or that extra encouragement or that extra, like, you better get up there, and that's what I'm doing now. So there are people that you want to share your voice. We're creating a couple of poetry platforms. One of the biggest ones, I'm gonna shout out right now, is called Museum of Poets. I just performed in Hartford, Connecticut for the first time, for the first showcase of Museum of Poets. And we're looking for museums across the world. So if you know a museum that's interactive, that's engaging, that has different spaces or sets that you could kind of see someone performing in, whether it's an aquarium, whether it's a museum, a history museum, let me know. Because we're looking to take this thing worldwide. And we just started, but I understand the potential of it. So that's one of the ways that I would love people to tap in if you can. But follow me, man.
All right, so Brenden, bro, thanks so much, bro, for coming all the way down here to New York to meet up, right?
The pleasure was mine.
All right, I appreciate it.
You, man.
Right?
It's been a long time. I ain't seen you in a couple of years, man. I had to catch up, man.
Yeah, respect, right? So, guys, this was Brenden, right? Again, the first interview, the link will be in the description down below. All the links that he spoke about will be in the description down below. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and remember to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye for now. Peace.